Hi, my name is Kelly Kopek, and I will be covering Responsibility2, which is Plan Health Education. Here are some of the roles of the health education specialist within this responsibility itself. Some of the key terms, basically the key terms I'll be covering throughout the competencies and the sub-competencies. And here are the competencies I'll be covering. What I did when I was studying and going over this information is I broke it down, each sub-competency, and then I basically simplified it for myself as to, how I would be able to understand it myself, and so I figured that would be the best way to explain it to everybody else. So that's what I'm going to try and do here with these competencies. So we'll look at first, it's going to be 2.1, which is involve priority populations and other stakeholders in the planning process. So we're talking about there, with incorporating principles of community organization. When we look at community organizations, we're basically talking about starting our program like from the grassroots level. One advantage of starting our program from the grassroots level is you're instilling a sense of pride and ownership within the community. So basically, you're getting a community to say, okay, we recognize that we have this problem, and they're going to be part of the planning process in how they're going to fix the problem. So they'll have that, ownership of the program. It's not just, a bunch of specialists coming in and saying, hey, you have this problem. We set up this whole program, and you got to be involved in it. If they set it up themselves, if they had a critical part in setting it up themselves, they'll be more likely to participate in the program itself. Next, looking at identify priority populations and other stakeholders. So we're looking at the priority population. That means basically who, and you basically found that out during your needs assessment, which was Responsibility 1. What I'm also going to be looking at, what we're looking at here is, I talked about Responsibility 1, even though I'm in Responsibility 2, because there's 3 F's to program planning, and one of them is flexibility. Flexibility means that, yes, it's a step-by-step process, but you need to realize that just because you moved on to step 2 doesn't mean you may not jump back to step 1. You need to remain flexible in the planning process. Just in case maybe missed a critical step, or a critical portion of step 1, that you need to be able to go back, back and forth as needed. Next is 2.1.3, communicating the need for health education. When you're communicating the need, you can do it in one of 4 different ways. You can do it interpersonally, organization or community, or mass media. So interpersonally would be, one-on-one talking, maybe you're walking down the street in a certain community that has a problem, and for instance, I'll say a car seat safety program is going to be the example I'll probably use throughout the whole thing. So maybe I go walking down the street and I see a mom with a young child, a 2, 3-year-old toddler, and I, speak to them about the need for a program of teaching them about car safety because, excuse me, there were maybe, too many deaths and injuries of children not being properly strapped in the car seat. So I would, go up one-on-one if I saw a mother. Interpersonally, we like small groups. Maybe in the community there's like, a mommy and me program, or, kinder music is a big thing. So I might, go down to that class and just have a little talk with a couple of mommies about the importance of car seat safety. Organization or community, like a larger group, so maybe you go to like a local church or just, any kind of community. Maybe you go down to like a WIC office and you see a bunch of mommies and you talk to them there, group there. And then mass media, you have like TV, radio, newspaper, obviously Facebook and stuff like that. I saw that the car seat safety law just changed in New Jersey, and I found that out through Facebook. I saw articles pop up on Facebook. So that's another way to communicate the need for that change. 2.1.4, develop collaborative efforts among priority populations and other stakeholders. We're looking at collaborative efforts. It basically means working together, more than one group working together towards a common goal. So an example I put here is like the American Heart Association working together with the Let's Move campaign, because they have the same common goal, in the future to kind of eliminate or prevent, obesity, and which causes heart problems down the road. That's why the American Heart Association would be interested in that. Big reason that collaborative efforts are preferred, or yeah, I guess preferred would be a good way to say it. You're instead of just having one pot of money and this little group of people, you have two campaigns. So they can put more money, resources, not just money, but resources into that, plus more people, and then hopefully you will come up with a successful program there. So I have a happy face there. Elicit input from priority populations and other stakeholders. Basically, if you elicit input from the priority populations themselves, you'll remove obstacles. So if you like I said earlier, if you're not talking about the need, if you're not getting their input, you may face some obstacles in trying to implement the program if you don't see what they think they need and what they would be open to, basically. All right, next one is obtain commitments from priority population and other stakeholders. When you're looking at obtaining commitments, you're looking a lot of times like support from leaders. So just say you're trying to set up the car seat safety program within your city, more specified one. So you're looking at, your mayor, your council members. So you would develop a rationale, which basically is going to say, why should the community leaders support your program? So you would be developing, just a letter here that would say, here's why it's an issue in the, say, of the nation, and then narrow it down to why it's a problem in the community itself, and then how you can make it better, how you can make it less of a problem. And you would put together your planning committee. So when you're doing that, you're looking at basically like drafting your team. So you see what kind of people you want on there. So say for a car seat safety program, you may want a certified health education specialist. You would want somebody that is certified to put car seats into, install car seats into cars. Like, for example, a lot of firefighters and emergency medical technicians are certified on how to properly install car seats into into cars. So that's where you would just look at who you want on your team depending on your program. All right, the next competency is develop goals and objectives. Excuse me. The first thing you want to look at is identifying your desired outcomes. So you're going to look at your baseline, like where are we now? So you take where you're at right now, and then where you want to be in the future. That's where your desired outcomes are. So with the car seat safety program, say in my community, there's X amount of injuries or deaths from children not being put in their car seat properly. And then I want it to decrease by this amount, basically. So that's where you're going to look at the future. This is where you look at your functionality is another F of the program plan. So another one is flexibility. Functionality is your program going to do what it's intended to do? That's where you're looking at. Your program must, you could set up a program for car seat safety, and if it's not going to decrease or, at least educate parents on how to do it, then it's not functional. It's not appropriate there. Next is you're going to select your planning model. There's a bunch of planning models that you can use, and it all depends on the situation. You have the general model for program planning, match. I put a bunch of the planning models down here that you can choose from. They're all good in their own way. They all have general steps that are pretty similar, but they're all different when it comes to what they maybe focus on. What we're going to go over first is a generalized model for program planning. We're just going to go over this briefly because all the responsibilities are going to break down the steps themselves. You have assessing needs, developing goals and objectives, you plan the intervention, implement the intervention, and evaluate. And here you can see on the side is the third F of program planning is fluidity, is that it is a step-by-step process and it should flow from step 1 to step 5. Basically, like I said a minute ago, that there's how many models of program planning. There was a ton down there. But all models are going to share these elements. One model may focus more on assessing needs. One model may focus more on evaluation. It all depends on the model. It all depends on what you're trying to do. Other one we'll look at more in depth is the pre-seed proceed model. This whole section of it is going to be the pre-seed portion, where you have phase 1 is doing the social assessment, basically looking at the quality of life of the priority population. Then you do phase 2 is the epidemiological assessment, where you're looking at genetics, behavioral, and environmental factors. You can see, say, the car seat safety program. So what are maybe some environmental problems there? I know in my community we have about 6 fire departments. However, only 1 or 2 firefighters are certified to install car seats, and they only work at the one, and it's like basically Midtown in my community. Now, say somebody doesn't have a vehicle every day, so they can't, bring it down to that fire department, or they can't access that fire department. Well, I would say that could be an environmental factor there, or behavioral. A lot of times, maybe it could be that parents, when they strap their child in there, they're just lazy. I know quite a few parents that forward face their child right at 1 because of the convenience. My son's 2.5 and he's still rear facing, and it is a pain to put him in the seat, I'm not going to lie. But I know that his safety is more important than my convenience. Now, I know other people that say, oh, it's so annoying. So that's like a behavioral factor there. Phase 3 is the educational and ecological factors. Look at, are they predisposing factors, like is somebody already, I don't know how to connect it to this one, but this have that you're predisposing, like, are they already going to do it that way for whatever reason, X, Y, Z. Enabling factors, and then reinforcing factors. Phase 4, the administrative and policy alignment. Administrative and policy assessment / intervention alignment. So you just double check to see if there are already programs in place that have these car seat safety programs. I know, like, in my community itself, there is not a big push on car seat safety. I know, like, maybe annually they'll do a check. They'll say, hey, come by this fire department and we'll check your car seat. But I know in the city next to mine, they have one every Thursday from 10 to 2. You can come and bring your car, and they'll put the car seats in properly. But I know it's not widely advertised. I actually had to, like, Google it and figure that out. So, just look at that. So maybe I would connect my program to the one in the city next to mine, basically. And then we have the proceed half of this planning model. You have phase 5 is implementation. Phase 6 is process evaluations, where you're actually evaluating the program itself, the implementation of the program, the intervention itself. Phase 7 be impact evaluation. So what are, like, the immediate results of my program? So if I had this car seat safety program, how many people showed up? How many people learned? Okay, I asked them, hey, can you demonstrate now how to properly buckle your toddler in a 5-point harness? And they were able to do it right then and there. And then phase 8 will be outcome evaluation, which is long-term. So did we actually affect the morbidity and mortality rates of children that belong in car seats? And this, the most used formal planning model, the pre-seed proceed model. Here's some other models. I kind of just broke them down, like, a little bit. The planned approach to community health, which is PATCH. It's used frequently in, like, health departments and local communities. The assessment protocol for excellence in public health, APEX-PH. It's a project among professional organizations like SOFI and APHA. And then mobilizing action through planning and partnership, which is MAP, which replaced APEX-PH. And they have mobilize, assess, plan, implement, and track, which is MAP it, which is basically how communities implement and adapt Healthy People 2020. So, say for my community, I would look up the Healthy People 2020 objectives for, car seat safety, and then I'd be like, okay, how can I take this objective and modify it and adapt it to my local community? All right, and then developing goal statements. Here's 2.2.4. Goal statements are basically broad statements of direction. They're fundamental and long range. So I had put an example here. All children in New Jersey will be safely strapped into their age and or size appropriate car seats for every car ride. So it's not very specific. It's just kind of, hey, this is what my, where I want this program to go. This is what I would like the general outcome of my program to be. And then the next thing you do is formulate objectives. So your objectives are going to tell you exactly how you're going to reach that goal, or how I'm going to reach that goal. And objectives need to be, they basically need to be smart. They need to be specific. They need to be measurable, or else you won't be able to tell if you met your objective. They need to be attainable, make sure that you can actually get there. They need to be realistic and time-oriented. So you need to say, by the end of, this year, I'd like to decrease death rates of toddlers and infants in their car seat by 50%, we'll just say. So objectives need to tell you who will do how much of what by when. So if your objective answers all these questions, it will fit, it will be smart, it will fit all these, all this criteria right here for an objective. And there's different types of objectives. So you have your program, environmental, behavioral, learning, and administrative. So your program objective means did your morbidity and mortality rates decrease at the end? That's what you want for your program objective. Environmental would be not installing safety checks, but maybe making sure that more firefighters are certified to do safety checks at each fire department. Behavioral, are you changing the parents' or caregivers' actions? So you need to change their actions to make sure they're actually strapping their child in appropriately, tightening the strap, doing the pinch test, all different things. Learning, an objective is make sure you're teaching the parents the actual regulations. So, okay, they may know how to properly do it, but do they know how long that their child needs to be in this car seat, or how long do they have to be rear facing? How long are they encouraged to rear face? Even the updated law that I read recently is a little, it confuses the words. I had somebody read it and it said it didn't seem like the law changed. Well, it did. Now they have to legally ride rear facing till 2, but they're encouraged to do it up until 3. So people take the word, should, encourage, they take the words and kind of mix them up. So make sure your program, a learning objective would be to clarify and make sure parents fully understand those laws. And then administrative objectives would be how you want the program to run itself. So, maybe you want 10 parents to show up and have this, safety check like once a month or something. And then next thing to look at is assessing resources needed to achieve your goals, your objectives. Do you have enough time to do it? Do you have enough money? Do you have enough people? Like I said, I think we have 2 firefighters in my community out of, I'm not really sure what the population is, but out of how many firefighters, there's only 2. I maybe need more people to be trained. And then do you have the proper equipment for your program? Next is select or design strategies or interventions. You can design theory-based strategies and interventions to achieve stated objectives. So you're looking at these different strategies. You have educational, so it just kind of be like a program where you're teaching. Health engineering would be like, we actually, like I said, putting, having those safety checks put in each fire department. Community mobilization is, am I getting more of the community involved together to kind of make this program run? Health communication, am I just, sending news out there? My program may just be, sending the word out. Hey, this is the new law. Here's the new law. Make sure you're complying. Health policy enforcement, which, like I said, just has already happened. That it's now mandatory for children to rear face until 2. And then health-related community service. And then pilot test strategies and intervention. Basically, you're looking at using formative evaluations. So you're going to do a pilot test of your intervention. So maybe I'll implement it for like a week, and then I will evaluate it and say, okay, who showed up, how many changes, what changes happened, did I affect anything? Maybe I'll hand out surveys on a test audience of parents and say, was this effective? Did you learn anything? Tell me what you learned, and are you now, have you changed the way you strap your child into the car seat? 2.4 is develop a scope and sequence for the delivery of health education. So you're going to develop a plan for implementation. You have to determine the range of education. And when you're determining the range of education, you want to make sure you're not like overreaching. You want to make sure you're going to be reaching your optimal educational effectiveness. So if you're dealing with a community, you just say that is, when you did your target population, you looked at your prior population, maybe you had, mothers that have a high school degree or less. They have less than that. You're not going to be teaching them at a level much higher than that. You want to make sure your goals are, in line with your already audience there. Then 2.4.3, you're going to use logic models to guide the planning process. So look at a logic model here. So you have your inputs would be time, your resources, your people, and then what's going to come out of that is the outputs with your activities and your interventions. So it would be the car seat safety check itself. What would be the impact of that? As I said, would be the short term. That's your short-term effects, and then your outcome is your long-term effects, as I spoke about earlier. All right. Then 2.5 is addressing factors that affect implementation or affect or hinder implementation. First, we're going to look at identifying the factors. So maybe you have a lack of support. It could be within your community. Your mayor, council members don't see this as not going to hire more firefighters or get pay for more firefighters to get certified in car seats. In time and resources, maybe you don't have the money, don't have the equipment for them to install the car seats. Then you look at analyzing factors. Excuse me. Look at analyzing factors that foster implementation. So you look for those like elements. So you see basically where you can fix your program. Throughout the pilot test. You look at, okay, here was an issue. Let's see. We'll kind of fix it as we go along, and then refine implementation after the pilot testing. And that's the end of Responsibility 2. Thank you.